Good morning. I'm Jim Check with Kelowna Now. I'm here with Ian Burns on the phone, all the way in from Ottawa on this Friday as we head into the weekend. Traffic flowing nicely on the live shot in behind me there on Highway 97. Good morning, Ian.
Howdy ho, man. How you doing?
Yeah, our Canadian Border Patrol says, the Border Services Agency says that Canada is not a significant source of fentanyl.
Yeah, Donald probably isn't going to agree with that, but I mean, that
Didn't,
is at least what the CBSA's own statistics
uh,
show. But I
didn't,
mean, it isn't very much. It's like 5 kilograms or something like that. But you have to bear in mind that it takes like a tiny little fragment of fentanyl to kill somebody, doesn't it?
Yeah. And didn't we just, wasn't there a story just done saying we only search about 1% of the containers that come into our ports? Or 1 or
Yeah,
2%?
that seems to be really the main issue, doesn't it? And that's something that a lot of people in BC and in Canada have been trying to change. They've been
Yeah.
trying to get, well, one of those people is Pierre Polyev, obviously, who's
Yeah.
repeatedly said that. And
And
that's
then,
also in relation to cars being stolen and then shipped off to Asia and Africa.
and then locally, we had that big bust in Falkland with like one of the biggest meth labs out there. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it is very interesting because we've traditionally associated drug production with places like Colombia, haven't we? Like where it's dependent on the climate to produce
Um,
something like cocaine or even cannabis or whatever. But fentanyl's weird, isn't it? Because you can just do it anywhere. You can create it anywhere
chemicals.
because it's
It's
completely
been,
synthetic.
yeah, exactly. The Canada Post strike looks like the government is going to intervene after all as we head into the 29th day.
Yeah, I left it long enough, didn't I? But it does look like it's going to come to an end now.
Like we were talking yesterday, there's not a lot of compassion left for either side. I think it was Renee and I talking about that. Like I think it's gotten to the point where it's really hurting Canadians, and I think people just want it to get back to work.
Yeah, and I think another loser in this whole affair is the federal government, really, isn't it? Because people are going to
Yeah,
wonder what were you waiting for? Why
yeah.
did this take so long?
It's it is puzzling for sure. Uh, so an ex-advisor says Trump was just trying to humiliate Trudeau as the president-elect claims U.S. subsidizing Canada. I mean, obviously he's like using his strongest strength, and that's bullying, and he definitely has been bullying Trudeau. But is it deserved? Because I mean, for 3 years, what did Justin Trudeau but spew hate and rhetoric against Donald Trump?
Trump, Trudeau's form of bullying, if you want to call it that, or abuse, was a lot more passive aggressive, though, wasn't it? It was like just like the other day when he said that thing about women's rights, very passive, like not on the nose. Whereas
Uh,
Trump just comes back and hits him
yeah.
directly, doesn't he?
Well,
There's
he did use his name as a slur to attach hate and division onto Pierre Polyev countless times.
well, just recently, Stephen Colbert in America said that as well, didn't he, about Polyev being a sort of Canada's version of Trump, and then Trudeau just sat there with his legs crossed and smiled. And it's kind of, I'm
Mhm.
sure that's the kind of thing Trump probably watched live, didn't he? He loves his TV, so I mean, yeah, he had an opportunity there maybe to stand in, to step in and say, no, no, but I don't
I,
know. I mean, he's diplomatically, the Liberals are in a sort of a grave of their own creation, aren't they? They've dug this hole and now they're lying in it, and it's hard to feel sorry for them in that sense.
and he seemed to ramp it up there when he attacked the American public as well. Not even Donald Trump when he did that thing on why they didn't elect Kamala Harris. It was a direct attack, and then a lot of the media outlets now are going after that and say that he owes an apology to the American public because that attack was on the American voters.
Yeah, and that's what Doug Ford said. He immediately came out and said and used the word democracy or democratic, didn't he? It's like there's a reason that that word is sort of quite sensitive and hallowed, or however you want to describe it, because it does refer to the whole population. It refers to all the electors in the United States, and we're talking tens of millions of people that elected Donald Trump. It is a
Yeah.
very odd thing to say.
Yeah, and then here's more on reasons why it's not a vibe session. Um, More than half Canadians afraid of losing their home. 63% in BC, according to this poll. This is not a vibe session. People are definitely scared, and the economy is not good.
Yeah, and it goes into a lot of things that survey about because it's health as well, which is kind of that's kind of independent of the cost of living situation, isn't it? Like people, it's almost like people have lost they've lost their confidence in everything, haven't they? It's all gone. And I'm not sure if you included it for us to chat, but there's also the Angus Reid poll that's come out saying that significantly less or fewer Canadians feel proud of Canada or proud of their identity as well. And it's I think it's linked to this. It's linked to this feeling of poverty, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
declining wealth, at least.
and I think part of it is Trudeau wants a post-national state. It seems like. I mean, nothing but driving division and away from things, and like it's a very it's very hard for a lot of Canadians to feel patriotic when seems like everything's crumbling, and they tell you it's not. They say all of this stuff is a vibe session, or pure poly have caused it by saying everything's broken, when people can clearly see for a lot of them that it is broken.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that survey, the other one, the Angus Reid one, is that it splits along party lines. So the Liberals were more likely to be proud than the Conservatives. And that kind of that's a strange situation to be in, isn't it? Where it's like different perceptions of national identity and sort of pride in the country based on your party. And obviously Liberals feeling that way because it's their guy in charge. That's very peculiar, I think.
And this one here comes another thing that's broken in Canada. Medicaid's the CRTC reveals how it blocks news, and we are at the wrong end of the stick on this one. We've had our Facebook and our Instagram taken away. That's an audience of over 200,000, and we are not recognized by the Liberal government as a news outlet. Therefore, we do not get any of the funding that is afforded to many of the legacy media outlets. No uproar from the media on that either. It's we have the most experienced news, and we have a person that was a CTV, ran the CTV desk here, somebody that was at the Daily Courier for 30 plus years, yourself with the Daily Mail, and all the other people that work here are all journalists, and we continue to be under this Liberal government where they pick winners and losers and fund some and don't fund others, and take away our audience. All we want is our audience back, and we don't believe that. And this is we don't believe that we should be accepting money from the government. No media outlet should be accepting money from the government. We should be independent and allowed to operate with the audience that we earned.
Yeah. What is interesting in this is the sort of hilarious catch-22, hilarious to someone, I'm sure, that we find ourselves in where Meta, and they say it in this letter that they've sent to the CRTC, they explain that they have a certain system in place to identify and recognize and block news outlets on Facebook, including us. So so Meta, again, this is not the first time they've said this, explicitly stating that they consider us to be a news outlet, and
Yeah.
there's the federal government. And it's not even the federal government; it's a set of random people who consider themselves to understand journalism, be experts in journalism, who have declared that we aren't a news outlet. They say that we aren't. So it's like it's such an odd position where Meta, by rights, Meta should declare us to not be a news organization, shouldn't they? Because
And we've
that's what
appealed.
that's
We've
what
appealed to
this
Meta
panel of
twice.
experts says.
Yeah, we've appealed to Meta twice, and they've said no, you are a news outlet. And they use the same criteria to judge what is a news outlet and what isn't a news outlet as the federal government does. Yet we're in the middle of a Monty Python skit, really.
Yeah, we are. We are actually like a sort of a parody of bureaucracy gone wrong or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've had letters written by you know um, very high-ranking political figures saying that we are a news outlet and should be recognized as that, and they've been sent off to Ottawa, yet no response. And and even our own MP sent one off to Pascal on Saint Ange, and she sent back a thing that just basically was a cut and paste from the website. This we are all about independent journalism, supporting it. and no answer about us. Just like cut and paste from the website. Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of responses to MPs letters along those lines, I must say, like where they just literally don't even read it, do they?
Yeah.
They just copy and paste some junk.
So we've been talking about this, and it sounds like it's getting some steam there. Now the National Post with 5 things we learned about Melanie Jolie, and the New York Times profile that declares her the top contender. More and more people are starting to talk that she is going to replace Trudeau. I did put that question to Renee Merrifield yesterday, and she doesn't think so. She thinks Justin would never give up the power. I'm of the belief that I think he's coming to realize that he's part of the problem, but who knows?
Well, it was quite a surprise, wasn't it, when his dad threw the towel in, that walk in the snow.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe he really is gonna follow his dad and surprise people.
Yeah, and we talked about this already. Canada Post could soon be forced back to work. That was a tweet. Whether we can probably just go past that. We already talked about that. But here's the bigger news out there. Even Sam Altman now to put $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund. That seems like a lot of people doing that, including Jeff Bezos yesterday saying that he's going to put $1 million. This inauguration party might be pretty big if everybody's putting in $1 million. I thought it was more of a formality kind of thing. Sounds like it's going to be a bit of a show.
Yeah, they're really bending the knee, as the phrase goes, aren't they? These tech people, the tech giants. It almost look I could see Trump actually looking at this with contempt, actually, the way that they're just trying to kind of crawl back into his good favor. But I don't know. I mean, Trump Trump makes friends with his enemies, doesn't he? As long as they
Yeah.
submit.
He
So
he has
I don't know,
he
maybe
ha-
it'll work.
he has said that it's time to move forward, and he has said that about these people, and that he wants to build the greatest economy ever, and he's going to need these people. But it's odd that these are the same people, like Zuckerberg too, is going to put $1 million in. These are the same people that banned him from their own platforms and said that he was a threat to democracy, and all of a sudden they're just like coming to the table.
I think the reality is, and what it shows us is that these tycoons and businessmen, whatever, they're realists first, aren't they? They're pragmatists first.
Yeah.
And the reason that they went along with all of the sort of left wing stuff, if you want to call it left wing, from in recent years, is because they thought that that was going to benefit them and their business. But now that isn't true. So they move on.
Scott Moe wants a federal election as well, as many Canadians do. The polls say that they want an election. Um, Pierre Poilievre putting on a tweet that call a carbon tax election so Canadians can choose a strong leader. And one of the things that just I'm going to keep driving home that the carbon tax is a compounding tax. It gets added on as products move through the thing. GST is an end user tax. There's a big difference between the two of them. And then, they overly simplify what a carbon tax is when they try to explain how it's not causing inflation, when it clearly gets added all along the way. I did a small example even with ChatGPT, and it said that what ChatGPT came up with was that it was like 50 cents is added on to each loaf of bread. So I mean that sounds pretty damning.
A lot of it's very difficult to quantify as well, isn't it? Like things like business confidence and investor confidence and things like that. We
Yeah.
know that all that's affected as well. But how
I
on
think
earth do you accumulate that data? It's very hard to do that, isn't it?
yeah. I think the key thing is it's suppression of energy, right? And nations to be prosperous need energy. I think that's the key point that people have to realize. And then we have a compounding tax put on our energy and a suppression of that.
You'd think, wouldn't you, that we'd have learned that lesson over the last couple of years, or it's going on for 3 years, isn't it, since Russia invaded Ukraine, and that sent the European economy into a downward spiral. And why? Because of energy. You'd really think that we would look at Germany now, for example, as it sort of flails around in a kind of pretty pathetic situation because of its bad energy policies. You think we'd look at that and say, all right, let's not be them. Let's not be like that.
Hmm.
But it doesn't really seem that we'll learn in the lesson.
Yeah. So the GST thing goes into effect starting tomorrow. And lots of kind of like companies that they're like, this is Pepsi and Frito-Lay sending out a thing saying that they're not going to adjust the GST that, like when they sell it to retailers. But I would think, why would they? Because, it's an input tax, because GST is an end user tax. But I did get a thing from Cisco and saying they are going to adjust it. So I'm just not sure why would they adjust it, because Cisco sells to commercial businesses, which is, again, an end user tax. So I just think the point here is that I think a lot of people are really confused on what they're supposed to do and not supposed to do. Um, it's just adding a ton of confusion here. We
I
have
wonder if there's
the
going to be a Black Friday style riot outside of a, I don't know, chip store or something to try and get
store.
in
There you
and buy
go.
some snacks.
And then somehow we cut and paste this one wrong. It's Chrystia Freeland's tweet that's in French. So if you can read French, there you go. But basically, it says that starting tomorrow, that they're going to put more money back into the pockets of Canadians. Again, that's not true. They're going to take less out of your pocket, not put more into your pocket. Do you know what I mean? It's your money to begin with. When you get taxed, they're taking your money. They're just going to take less of it on junk food on Saturday for 2 months. There's a bit of a difference there, right? They're not putting money into your pocket. They're taking less out.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Well, that is the actual way, but yeah.
Well, they would say where that money pays for certain services, but we're not going to take those services away from you. You're still getting that, so therefore we're giving it to you. I guess that would be their
Yeah.
retort.
Well, it sounds like they don't seem to be too shy. There's $71,000 just spent on food for a 4-day trip to the G7. And then there's a lot of other money in there too. They don't seem too shy to spend the Canadian dollars. I think it worked out to about $147 per meal per person in their entourage. So they must be eating well.
So it's not Doritos and a rotisserie chicken for Justin then.
Yeah, they're not eating Cheetos and rotisserie chickens. No, they are not. They're definitely. I remember when the big stir about
That's
that
like gourmet Doritos.
Stephen Harper's $6 glass of orange juice. Well, these guys make Stephen Harper look like a spendthrift, right? Spare. I mean, this has been, like some of the places that he stayed and wouldn't tell us where he stayed. I think that I think it was King Charles's inauguration, and the big suite that was rented and then denied staying in, all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like the things aren't well in Liberal land, with more and more people doing stories on this too. Trudeau and Freeland on the outs, and it sounds like he's trying to put Carney in there. So definitely some infighting. I mean, lots of MPs have asked for a leadership review too, and they get silenced. And there was that other one that said he was bullied in the hallway and screamed at because he had a difference of opinion. And interesting times, right?
Yeah, it seems to be just considered to be just about a fact at this point, isn't it? That they're at war with each other. So it is interesting to see that in the Globe and Mail as well.
Yeah. Let's move on to markets. Like we've been saying for the past little while, gold continues to chop. It's chopping in there, up a bit, down a bit. I mean, it's building on that line. You can see that line that it's working in there at the end of the chart. This is a year-to-date chart. It's chopping in there, but it looks like it's compressing, that it wants to go higher. So it's looking for a catalyst either way. But I think the USD is definitely showing a lot of strength, and that's definitely not helping gold right now. Bitcoin looks like it's building a pretty strong base there over that $100,000 mark, and then lots of favorability in the U.S. market, including our own Vancouver, where we had the mayor say that he wants to make Vancouver the hub for Bitcoin. So more and more people saying Bitcoin can be part of the regular financial system. So I mean, they're even talking in the United States of making it part of their reserve currency. And then there's the sad chart. It looks like it's fallen a bit more. It looks like it wants to go below 70 cents. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while. That chart looks very sick. And with what's going on here now, even with Canada ramping up its trade, like it's, like saying things about how it's going to stop, put taxes on uranium and taxes on this, taxes on that, and choke off energy supplies and water and all this kind of stuff is not going to be friendly to the Canadian dollar at all.
That's going to be a huge psychological blow, isn't it, if it does go sub 30, sub 70, sorry.
Yeah. It will drive inflation in Canada. It'll be good for the exporters, but it will definitely not good when you're buying, like produce and that comes from south of the border. Anything else that comes south of the border, you're going to see everything get more expensive. It'll put
But
our
even
real
a lot
estate
of
on
things,
sale because Americans may be looking at Canada and saying, well, you got a 50% off sale there on, like places like, Big White even and Kelowna and that where, that people would like a vacation home.
yeah. But it's not even just America, is it? There are lots of other things around the world that you can buy in dollars as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it could kind of screw us in a lot of areas.
Correct. Here's one just to point out, like investment, like when we talk about Google acquired YouTube back in October of 2006 for $1.65 billion. And a lot of people thought that was really an astronomical number. But Google has now brought in $144 billion just from YouTube over the last 5 years. Looks like that investment for Google has paid off. And it's one of their bigger properties. I think YouTube is the number one visited website in the world. Like YouTube, not
I'm
Google, YouTube.
I'm not entirely surprised that their profits are up so much based on how aggressive they've become with their ads of late.
Yeah.
But it is funny that they bought it for so little. But I would be interested to know what's happened to that money that the because it was two guys, wasn't it, who founded YouTube. I'd be interested to know what they did with that money and what their pile looks like now.
Mm.
Because obviously, 2006, quite a long time ago. I imagine if they'd invested that wisely, that must be worth quite a lot of money now.
And talking about investing, it was on this day in 1980, the largest, I could have made yesterday actually. In 1980, the largest stock in the world, Apple, went public through an IPO. And if you invested $10,000 in Apple's IPO and still held that today, it'd be worth $25 million. And there you go. That's Steve Jobs there and Steve Wozniak.
That's a very very old computer there, isn't it, that he's working on?
Yeah. But there you go. $10,000, $25 million in Apple's IPO. That's what's that, 20, 40, 44 years ago, eh?
Wow.
Apple's a big part of my life. I mean, Apple, everything I use, like, I mean, most of my technology is Apple Watch, phone, laptop, desktop. You know what I mean? Like it's an Apple world for a lot of things. And we were a Windows company for a long time, but Windows computers for us seem to always degrade over time, end up with tons of viruses and all that kind of stuff, where Apple really seems to be a lot different.
Yeah, it's funny that the because it used to be the case that Windows were targeted with viruses because they had so much market dominance. But I can't imagine that they have the same amount of dominance now, and yet there aren't many Apple viruses, are there?
No, closed architecture. Um, AI. In our AI world, we got a little clip here from Palantir CEO Alex Karp talking up the USA and AI.
I would say one thing that gets somewhat lost in these results is America is in the very beginning of a revolution that we own, the AI revolution. And we own it. It should basically be called the US AI revolution. Every single relevant company in the world is in this country. The second tier of those companies are in this country. The JV of these companies are in this country. There is no other place to do technology really at scale besides America right now. And Europe is basically decided to regulate its basically anemic and non-existent tech scene out of production. All those people want to come to America. The American tech community is booming, and so
I know you take a little bit of exception to that, saying there is some companies in the UK that have AI, and then one or two in France and that. But I mean, if you look at it, the majority of tech companies, IT AI companies, it is the United States, and the EU and Canada seem to their contribution to AI seems to be wanted to be in the regulation of AI.
Yeah, I think he's definitely accurate there, and it's also accurate to say that the big boys, Google, Apple, ChatGPT, and so on, they're all in America. But he said something like, I can't remember what word he used. Was it relevant? All relevant AI
Yeah.
companies? That's just obviously wrong. But I mean, I would take more. I would dispute even more vigorously what he said later on in that video, which is that the Americans invented the atomic bomb completely by themselves, and then it was stolen from them, because obviously they didn't invent it by themselves. They only got there because of the British and Canadians who were also involved in the Manhattan Project. But we get used to this kind of garbage from Americans, don't we? And that's just something we have to get on with.
Yeah, I think that to me, the more relevant point is that in the environment in Canada right now, why would you want to start a company here when the United States is saying if you have $1 billion, bring it to the States, we'll fast track you, lower tax rate, 15% tax rate, and the capital gains increase in capital gains tax here, and just the environment here seems to be definitely really hard. And if you can just walk across the street there, basically across the border, and start a company, why would you do it here right now?
Totally, yeah. And that's why, you mentioned capital gains. That's why that tax went down like a lead balloon, like people were really upset about that, weren't they? Because the Americans already have so many advantages, and then in the tech space, and then to throw that on top of it, it's kind of like, again, it's we use this phrase a lot, but it's almost like self-harm, isn't it? Like economic self-harm.
Yeah, there was just an MP that came out just recently, a Liberal MP, saying that Canada is leading in AI, and therefore we need to create this big slush fund, and so that we can dole out the money, and it'll be like the usual ones. Likely, they'll dole out the money to undisclosed people, and then say they can't disclose where the money went because of national security.
Well, there's one thing you forgot. They'll have to be in Quebec as well, as they usually are.
We got an AI one to show you here. This is Sora, just launched with OpenAI, and some people are now starting to create some videos. And if you check out this video, this is created with Sora. Check this out. Dear me. That's probably good, Rommel. The cakes and cookies there look very, very enticing.
Yeah, no GST, remember?
No GST, there you go, for a couple of months. And then in the EV news, we found there's a Chinese EV maker, Xpeng, showing off its modular flying vehicle called the Land Aircraft Carrier. So that in the back of your car, which kind of looks like a weird looking Cybertruck, kind of maybe. Starting price $280,000. They've got 2,000 orders for this thing. So out of the back comes your little drone, and the aircraft cabin fits 2 people, and up and away. The Chinese have so many different EV makers, and they're all like trying to find an edge in like how they can compete. Right? I'm going to the CES in January 5th here, and I imagine I'm going to see a lot of new technology. Last year was all about AI and energy. Surprise, surprise. This year, I think it'll just be that much more. I've been getting lots of invites to different press conferences and different things to view different things. So it'll be really interesting to see what's coming. I can't remember how many thousands of booths, like 40 or 50,000 booths, and a lot of them from China too, showing off their wares and their technology. And the good news segment. Big White, dozens of runs open, and then a sprinkling of fresh snow. And we did kick off yesterday. Every Thursday, we're going to be doing it from now on. Me and Chloe from Big White Ski Resort are going to do a weekend report to tell you what's going on up the hill, what the ski conditions are, and how you're going to have so much fun up at Big White. We live within a half an hour of a world-class ski resort, and it is definitely one of the big advantages of living in the central Okanagan, or the Okanagan for that matter. We have a lot of ski hills around us, but Big White Ski Resort right just up the road from us here, and some of the best powder in the world is at Big White Ski Resort. And they've got an amazing base right now too. Happening this weekend, that parade, we'll play a little clip and we can talk over this clip. That parade was in Kettle Valley last year, and this is some of the footage from Kettle Valley, if Rommel can play that. It's going to start at 6 p.m. at City Park, and it'll make its way down East Bernard to Bertram Street before hanging a couple of rights and head west on Lawrence Avenue back to its starting point. There'll be some road closures and that and all that stuff. You can go to kelownanow.com and you can find more information on this. And then this is going to be kind of worked into there's a Rockets game going on. There'll be the teddy bear toss at the Rockets game, and that's the first Rockets goal scored. Then they fill the ice with teddy bears. And then after that, the parade will start at this parade's grown over time, and it's got just too big for Kettle Valley, and now it's coming downtown, which is so more people can enjoy it. It'll be great. Like, who doesn't love a Christmas parade? It'll be like our own little Macy's. There you go. And then our meme of the day, because we need to honor what's going on. It's cut off a little bit, but there was some beer there too. We're almost cut that off a bit there, but there's our deputy prime minister and our prime minister there with a bunch of beer and chips, because those are what's going to be like tax free. He's trying
to iron out their difficulties there, aren't they, over a few brews?
There you go. I think if you move it over a bit, Rommel. There you go. Yeah, you get rid of me. There you go. Yeah, they're trying to work it out. But that's like the best meme ever. And that was created by Grok. Grok seemed to think it was funny as well. So you're going to get. So after this, are you rushing out tomorrow morning to go grab as much chips, corn chips, taco chips, Doritos, and then of course as much beer as you can fit into your car? I mean, you're from England. You like beer, I imagine.
Yeah, although I don't really drink. That's almost like an embarrassing thing to admit in England. But yeah, I don't really drink. But I mean, it is Christmas. I might imbibe a couple of Guinnesses or something like that.
Well, don't forget to grab a few bags of chips while you're at it.
Yeah. But I was just gonna say, Grok is so much better at images than ChatGPT. I mean, there's no competition whatsoever, is there? It's completely leapfrogged its rival there.
Yeah. Well, that's I think we're at our 30-minute mark, about 31, and we're going to wrap this up. And you're going to be off next week. Kent Mulgad is going to sit in for you, and I do have a guest host on Friday. Scott Deedles is going to sit in for you, so we may have some other guest hosts as well. But yeah, you enjoy your week off, and as we enter into the Christmas season, you enjoy your time off with your family and your kids, and we'll see you back here just after that, and probably after Christmas, right?
Yeah, I didn't. First I'm hearing about Kent coming in there, so that will make it very interesting. I would highly recommend people to tune in.
Should be some sparks there for sure.
Yeah.
Dynamic tension, as they call it. There you go. Dynamic tension. It should be interesting for sure. With that said, we wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and of course you and your children, and we hope for a prosperous New Year for you, and we'll see you before the New Year, I guess. And we thank you for watching Kelowna Now.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local.